Late around evening time in St. Gabriel's Clinic, the murmur of glaring lights reverberated through the sterile corridors. Sophie, a recently employed nurture, was relegated the super late shift interestingly. It wasn't simply any shift, it was in Ward 13, a spot that both staff and patients murmured regarding, however never straightforwardly discussed. Ward 13 had been fixed off a long time back because of a heartbreaking fire, abandoning just bits of gossip about what had happened. Some said a patient, consumed by franticness, had set the fire, while others guaranteed it was a specialist investigating the insane. Anything that reality, the ward was considered reviled, and the rare sorts of people who had thought for even a second to enter detailed odd peculiarities, murmurs, shadowy figures, and an enduring feeling of being watched. Sophie was told exclusively to screen the nearby Ward 12. Yet as the clock struck 12 p.m., the call button for room 1301 in Ward 13 mysteriously illuminated. Confounded, Sophie actually looked at her task. No patients were recorded there. Getting over it as an error, she disregarded it. However, when the call button illuminated a second and third time, a nervous perspiration shaped on her brow. Driven by a blend of dread and interest, Sophie got a spotlight and advanced toward the fixed-off hall. The air became colder as she drew nearer, and the weak sound of murmurs started to fill her ears. She wavered prior to pushing open the weighty swinging doors to Ward 13. Inside, the air was thick with the fragrance of burned wood and synthetic substances. Her electric lamp glinted, projecting long moving shadows on the walls. As Sophie moved further in, the murmurs became stronger, transforming into frantic cries and misshaped voices. The call button for room 1301 flickered consistently toward the finish of the lobby, attracting her like a moth to a flame. Reaching the entryway, she thought that it is somewhat slightly open. With a shudder hand, she pushed it open. The room was unfilled, put something aside for an old medical clinic bed, its sheets yellowed with age, and a solitary record laying on the bedside table. The document bore the name Eliza Marrow and was set apart with the word perished in strong red letters. As Sophie got the record, a virus breeze moved throughout the room, forcibly closing the entryway. Her electric lamp kicked the bucket, diving her into dimness. Overreacted, she attempted the entryway, yet it wouldn't move. The murmurs returned, stronger and more unmistakable now, revolving around her like vultures. Among them, one voice stuck out, a lady's delicate, forlorn tone. "Why didn't you save me?" the voice echoed. Sophie turned, her heart beating, to see a figure emerging toward the side of the room. It was a lady in a clinic outfit, her face half consumed, her eyes hollow. "You let us consume," the figure expressed, progressing toward Sophie. "You'll go along with us now." Desperation overwhelmed Sophie as she beat on the entryway, shouting for help. Outside, the night shift specialist heard her cries and hurried to Ward 13. Yet, when he constrained the entryway open, the room was vacant. Just the document bearing Sophie's name presently lay on the bedside table, set apart with the word "missing." From that evening on, room 1301's call button kept on illuminating, yet nobody tried to answer. Days after Sophie's vanishing, the clinic organization denied any association with Ward 13, dismissing staff worries as ridiculous tales. In any case, murmurs among the night shift became stronger. Of far-off cries, glinting lights, and shadowy figures showing up close, the fixed corridor, Dr. Evan Carter, a reasonable yet inquisitive doctor, chose to explore Sophie's vanishing. He had heard enough of the quieted discussions and odd events. Furnished with an electric lamp and a voice recorder, he held on until his shift finished, slipping inconspicuous into the passageway, prompting Ward 13. The foyer was frightfully peaceful, yet the vibe of being watched creeped him out. As he entered Ward 13, his recorder got weak static, blended with a solitary word: help. Approaching room 1301, Evan saw new scratches on the entryway, as though somebody or something had pawed at it frantically. Calling his mental fortitude, he pushed the entryway open. The room was precisely as it had been depicted: the bed, the old record on the table, and a weak fragrance of consuming. As he analyzed the record, the entryway squeaked shut behind him. Evan's electric lamp flashed, and his recorder went quiet. Abruptly, Sophie's voice reverberated around him, shouting out, "Have zero faith in them." They lied. The shadows in the room blended into a structure: Eliza Marrow, her consumed look winding with pain and fury. She highlighted the record, presently shining faintly, and murmured, "They knew. They passed on us to die." Evan, frozen in dread, flipped through the record. It contained reports of exploitative examinations on patients in Ward 13. The fire, he understood, hadn't been a mishap, however, a concealment to obliterate proof. Eliza and others had been forfeited to conceal the clinic's sins. "I'll uncover them," Evan guaranteed. Be that as it may, Eliza's structure inclined nearer, her empty eyes puncturing his. "You can't. When you enter, you're essential for the shadows." The floor underneath him started to shudder as the room obscured. A melody of voices, different casualties, rose, arguing for discharge. Evan attempted to get away, however the entryway wouldn't move. The shadows pulled at him, hauling him toward the bed. In a last-ditch effort, Evan flung the record through the window, breaking the glass. The far-off sound of alerts reverberated as the principal beams of sunrise got through. The shadows withdrew and Evan fell, scarcely getting away from their grasp. The next morning, emergency clinic staff tracked down him oblivious external Ward 13, gripping the roasted document. Not entirely set in stone to uncover reality, Evan imparted the document to specialists. The clinic was closed down, and its heads arrested, but Ward 13 remained. In spite of being blocked and announced forbidden, the lights in room 1301 still glint around evening time. Those bold, or stupid, enough to approach hear murmurs, "Help us," and "Don't forget." Evan, however a legend to many, knows reality. The shadows never left him. What's more, consistently, as he nods off, he hears Sophie's voice calling from the obscurity, "You can't escape." Evan's public openness of the analyses in Ward 13 brought public consideration. However, it additionally presented to him no harmony. Weird occasions started to torment his life. Lights glinted in his condo, murmurs followed him at an ungodly hour, and his fantasies were consumed by blazing passageways and anguished faces. Sophie's voice was a steady presence, encouraging him to finish what you started. Desperate to end the torture, Evan got back to the neglected medical clinic, equipped with research about profound purifying and warding customs. He was in good company. A writer named Claire, who had been exploring the emergency clinic's set of experiences, demanded joining him. "This isn't just about the clinic," Claire said. "It's pretty much every one of the spirits caught there. They're fastened to reality that was never completely revealed." Together, they entered the rotting building. The air was weighty with the fragrance of decay and sediment. Evan felt the natural draw toward Ward 13, where shadows squirmed against the walls as though alive. Claire recorded, not entirely settled to report the horrors. Inside room 1301, they found the bed stripped exposed. However, the document was back on the table, immaculate since Evan had flung it out a long time previously. Yet again, as Claire went after it, the shadows ejected, framing abnormal shapes. Eliza Marrow showed up, her face now more settled yet no less tormenting. She highlighted the floor underneath the bed. "It's there," she said, her voice a rough reverberation. "Reality they buried." Evan and Claire worked rapidly, prying up the old wooden boards. Underneath them was a scorched metal box, locked however weak. Inside, they tracked down an assortment of patient photos, journals, and a solitary tape named Examination 57, Termination. Claire played the tape on her recorder. The sound uncovered the chilling voices of clinic chairmen requesting the fire to delete all hints of their cold-hearted investigations. The patient's shouts reverberated over the popping flames. Suddenly, the room emitted in mayhem. The shadows erupted, rankled by the openness of their last confidential. The entryway forcefully closed, and the walls appeared to shut in. Eliza's figure lingered over them. "Take it out," she cried. "Let the world see." Evan got the proof and shot, hauling Claire with him. The shadows sought after them constantly, their frigid touch singing like fire. Similarly, as they arrived at the leave, a stunning thunder sounded, and the clinic started to collapse. Outside, panting for air, they looked as the structure disintegrated into a burning hot store. The shadows squirmed one final time prior to evaporating into the rubble. Months after the fact, Claire's narrative about the medical clinic circulated, uncovering the full degree of its abhorrences. Groups of the casualties at last had replies, and the medical clinic directors were considered responsible for their crimes. But Evan realized it wasn't finished. The shadows had left the emergency clinic, yet they hadn't left him. Consistently, his appearance gleamed in the mirror. Sophie's voice actually reverberated in his mind. "You liberated them, yet you won't ever be free." The narrative was a triumph. Families grieved, the blameworthy were arraigned, and the town trusted the shadow of Ward. 13 was at last gone. Yet for Evan, the dimness lingered. Every night the murmurs became stronger. Sophie's voice was at this point not the only one. It was joined by others, a clamor of melancholy cries and irate howls. The shadows currently swarmed his loft, sneaking in the corners, watching him. Lights glimmered inconsistently, and objects continued on their own. One evening, Claire visited Evan, worried about his weakening state. "You appear as though you haven't dozed in weeks," she said, peering toward the dark circles under his eyes and his shaking hands. "They won't let me be," Evan mumbled, gazing at his appearance in the window. Briefly, his face wasn't his own. It was Eliza's, her empty eyes gazing back. He drew back in terror. "I've given my best," he kept, pacing the room. "I uncovered reality. I liberated them. What more do they want?" Claire faltered. "Perhaps they need equity past exposure." Together they looked for replies. They counseled students of history, mystics, and any individual who could reveal insight into the emergency clinic's dim heritage. A visionary named Miriam offered the principal flash of hope. "The spirits are bound to the shamefulness," she made sense of. "It isn't sufficient to uncover reality. The last venture of penance should come from somebody associated with their pain." Evan understood what that implied. "Me," he whispered. The one night from now, Evan and Claire got back to the vestiges of the emergency clinic, presently minimal in excess of a scorched establishment. Furnished with Miriam's guidelines, they played out a custom to deliver the caught spirits. They copied sage, discussed petitions, and dissipated salt in a circle. The air developed cold, and the ground shuddered. Shadows rose up out of the remains, squirming and shouting. Once more, Eliza Marrow showed up, her structure more strong, her appearance desperate. "You can't free us," she said, her voice shaking with distress. "You can join us." Before Evan could respond, the shadows flooded toward him, immersing him. Claire shouted, going after him. However, the obscurity was impervious. The shadows whirled around him, their voices deafening. "Why him?" Claire shouted, destroys streaming her face. "For what reason must he pay?" Eliza's voice repeated, faint however unmistakable. "Since equity requests a sacrifice." When the shadows dispersed, Evan was gone. The air was still, the murmurs hushed. Claire tumbled to her knees, grasping the proof they had uncovered. She promised to proceed with Evan's battle, to guarantee the world always remembered his sacrifice. As she left, the vestiges were shockingly calm. However, in the weak gleam of the evening glow, a shadow waited, watching her leave. Evan's voice murmured delicately in the wind. "It's not finished."
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button for more videos. Until next time.